the research is again that we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. I think I'm on the higher range. And 80% of our thoughts are actually negative, which is what research in the mindfulness field is about. And we don't recognize it, right? So we don't recognize when we're beating ourselves up or judging ourselves or making assumptions. And so really this is this creating a kindness rock for somebody else and for yourself is a daily practice. It's mindfulness, it's art therapy, it's taking that time to sit, observe, let it go, give yourself what you need, and go do something nice into the world.
Welcome to the Kindness Factor podcast, sharing life-changing personal stories of the transformational impact of deep kindness. Hosted by
Dr. Elia, the happiness doctor,
and Randy McNeely, the kindness giver. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome to another episode of the Kindness Factor podcast. I'm Randy McNeely, known as the kindness giver. I'm joined by my amazing co-host from all the way across the pond, coming to us from Galaxy City, Greece. We are thrilled to have this amazing lady, wonderful lady, the founder of the Kindness Rocks Project, Megan Murphy, with us today. I want to tell you just a little bit about Megan. She's got so many accolades, I should say. I can pronounce that word, accolades. So many great things that she has done. I could be here for a long time just talking about that. But I'm going to give a brief introduction and then we'll jump into it and let you get to know her for yourself. Megan Murphy, she's the founder of the Kindness Rocks Project, which is a grassroots initiative. It's now in 90 countries and includes millions of participants. And here's the beautiful thing about her project. It's got a unique place in art history. It's one of the world's largest participatory and interactive works of art ever created. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And Megan is a professional coach. She's a women's empowerment coach. She's also an author of many books, which include A Pebble for Your Thoughts, How One Kindness Rock Can Change Your Life. She's also got the Kindness Rocks Journal and the Conversations Workbook for Kids, as well as the Art of Connecting Workbook. And she delivers workshops. She speaks to audience in the country around all about the topics around the Kindness Rock Project and art, connecting art and conversations, etc. Megan, there's so much more I could say and share, but we want to jump in and just listen to you and hear your story. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Normally what we do right off the bat, the purpose behind the show is to invite interesting guests that have had a story, or let me rephrase that, have had an experience with a kindness hero, someone or several someones who have stepped into their life and shown kindness in a way that has impacted them and still impacts them. And we would love to have, do you have a story like that you could share with our audience?
I do.
Probably a lot.
Yeah, but this one may be very surprising. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but that kindness hero was actually myself. I was walking the beach during a really challenging time in my life. One of those moments that as human beings, we all go through where we're just seeking inspiration, guidance, just, we're going through life. And I was seeking just anything in my day that would bring me a moment of joy or bring me some insight of what the next step in my life would be. I had been an entrepreneur for 15 years and built this very successful business, which I should have been really happy and joyful about. And yet, as my business started to get more successful and I was achieving the goals that I wanted, I realized that I was losing my happiness and joy along the way. Things must have shifted. And so I made the really challenging decision to walk away from that and then just start walking the beach, trying to find out, like, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing with my life, or what is it that will return me to me again, being the most joyful, my most joyful self. And so on those beach walks, I found heart rocks and pieces of sea glass, like many people do. And they to me, they were signs from my mom and dad because I had lost them when I was in my early 20s. They had passed. So I was like, oh, thanks, Dad, for this heart rock. That's like wonderful. It made me happy. And, then I started like asking them questions and like, what's the answer? Like, could you send me a heart rock if it's a yes? And, many people do that. We have these conversations with our loved ones. But on that, or during that process, I realized that those answers came within me, right? It's not like outside, there was no forces that were, giving me that insight, but that was coming from within me. And that's when I noticed other people looked like they were having challenges as they were walking the beach. And I started dropping the rocks for them with messages, which would be like my heart-shaped rock for me. But the process of creating those messages, and here I get to the point about who is my kindness hero and me, being bold enough to say that it was me, but I had to give the kind message to myself that I needed. And so that is really an important process of what the Kindness Rocks project is all about, because we were told growing up to always do kind things for others, and yet sometimes at the expense of ourselves. And so that's kind of what the project is giving yourself the kindness that you need.
I love that. And that's a very unusual answer for all the episodes that we've done. Nobody's answered it quite the way that you have. so that's beautiful. Um, so how did that explode in the way that it has and help
Yes.
other people?
So it's so interesting because as human beings, again, we all go through life challenges. Sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down. We share human emotions. That's what connects us all to one another. And so when I would write a message and if it said, hang in there or you're doing great, these messages that I needed myself, and I would then put it out into the world for somebody else, that person would find that message, pick it up, and immediately they think about the message like, oh, wow, I needed this, or this resonates with me. And then after that, they realize, oh, wait, another human being made this for me. And so that was intriguing, I think, for people along the way. And then they would kind of think, oh, well, maybe I could do this for somebody else because it made me feel so good. And, just like kindness and everything, once we do that, it also helps us feel better. And so it just started growing and growing because I live on Cape Cod in Massachusetts, in the US, where people from all over the world come to vacation. And I would plant these kindness rock inspiration gardens. And that's how it took off. People would take pictures and then they'd email me and ask me how they could do this in their community.
How did they know it was you? I'm kind of curious.
So that's a really great question. For the first year that I did this, I was anonymous. Nobody knew it was me because it was a personal practice, right? To make me feel better every day. And my daughter at the time was a teenager and they all know about social media. And she said, you should put a hashtag on the back of the rocks. And I didn't know what a hashtag
Oh,
was. And she said, if you put a hashtag, the Kindness Rocks Project, then people will look that up on social media. So if you take a picture of the rock and post it there, it's addition to the placing a rock someplace in the community, you can post that picture online and you can inspire somebody there. So eventually, after being anonymous for a year, I started a website. And I remember my first interview with a media outlet. I said, nobody knows it's me. I don't want anybody to know it's me because it's not about me. And so they filmed me from the back of my head. And that night, I received so many messages from people saying, I saw the back of your head on the news today.
you're like in a witness protection program, but they figured out who you were. That's very funny.
Exactly. And then, but the interesting part about that, so I love your question, was because, I was feeling as if it was such a weird thing to do with my life, right? Like just roam the beach and paint rocks. And I actually would have people say to me, aren't there better things you could do with your life? Right. Which mirrored how I was feeling inside, insecure about it. And I thought, no, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I had this kind of knowing about that. And so I also realized that, like anything, people want to know the story of how it started and they want someone to lead whatever it is. And so I had to come to terms with that and step into that role and share who I was and so on and so forth.
I'm so curious, where would you place the rocks? Were they totally random where you placed them, or were you, consciously and mindfully placing them in places where people would obviously see them and pick them up and so on?
Yeah, that's another great question. So originally, I do believe in just synchronicity, right? So on day one that I had a Sharpie in my pocket and I wrote 5 messages that made me feel good. And I placed them along the beach randomly, not mindfully at all, just in different places. And on that first day, one of my friends found one of those rocks, and I dropped those on a 1.5 mile stretch of beach, so it's definitely a needle in a haystack. And she found one of my rocks and she messaged me that night and said, "Did you leave this rock on the beach?" Because she knew I was walking the beach every day collecting heart rocks, and she thought this is something that she would do. Um, so that's how I started. And to tell you the truth, if she hadn't texted me that night, I don't know that I would have continued, because I had that negative self-talk in my head, which is also what this process is about, of being kind to yourself and being your own kindness hero. But after that, I continued randomly dropping them, but then I planted inspiration gardens. So I would take a piece of driftwood on the beach and I would paint on it the Kindness Rocks project, take a message. Oh, one message at just the right moment can change somebody's day, outlook, or life. Feel free to take one. And I would leave that on the beach and I would paint, and people would add to it and take from it. And it became this beautiful healing garden.
That's
And were
amazing.
they actually shaped like heart rocks? When you say heart, right, were they shaped like a heart or not necessarily?
No, no, no. So they were just regular rocks, but originally I would always look for heart rocks,
I
just
see.
me, that made me feel good, but I wasn't sure if I planted a garden with just heart rocks, I'm not sure people would understand, what that even was. So that's why I wrote the messages on them.
What a beautiful story. And I love the way that it organically took off. And it's not like you went out and sought media attention, or were looking for any way to bring attention to yourself for doing it. You were just doing it because you could, and because you had the hope that what you were leaving behind, what you were doing, was going to impact somebody else. And the fact that your friend found one that first day, that was for me, I think that's a sign. It was okay, keep going. That's somebody found this, and it inspired them or blessed their lives. So who knows how many other people might find them. And obviously that's worked, because you're now in what, 90 countries?
Yeah,
Something like
90
that.
countries, still 10, we're 10 years out and it's still growing. And, I think I thought it was going to be a phase. I was thinking, oh, this is just going to be something that, comes and goes like a pet rock or whatever. But surprisingly, we're 10 years out and the project continues to grow. It's, art therapy for so many people.
Mm.
And it's interesting because it took me, so I knew that it made me feel good when I was leaving the messages for myself on the rocks and then putting them out there for others as an act of kindness. But it wasn't until 5 years that I was doing this day in and day out that I woke up one day and I'm like, I know the process. I have a 5-step process that can help people. And it's based in mindfulness and self-compassion. That's really the component I feel is very important in this process. Because if we don't understand the need for compassion within ourselves, we won't understand that need for compassion for anybody else out in the world. And so that's really the main component of that process.
When a wallet was returned just moments after it was lost, a purpose was found. This one act of kindness inspired the formation of the nonprofit Kindness Worldwide to create a culture of kindness in communities throughout the world. Kindness Week Worldwide mobilized the entire community in York, Pennsylvania, featuring initiatives and playbook programs including blood drives, kindness cards, K-12 and college students embracing kindness, and an innovative means of community policing, kindness citations. If something so magical can happen in York, Pennsylvania, the same and other inspirations can happen anywhere and everywhere. Our Screen Scenes initiative featuring the Kindness Factor will showcase these many stories of kindness. Let's include your community among them. Kindness is the heartbeat of the world. Together, with your support, we can make all its hearts beat as one.
I mean, can you take us through the 5 steps very, very quickly? Like, what are the 5 steps to get to
Yes,
the...
so it's super simple because I use the acronym ROCKS, so that everybody could remember it. And the R stands for recognize. So basically it's sit with yourself, just be alone in a quiet space and sit and observe, like recognize your thoughts and your emotions, whatever's happening for you. Because as human beings, we have, around 60,000 thoughts a day. So there's always going to be something in there. So just sit and recognize what's going on in that head of yours. The O is just observe and own it. Whatever is coming up, whatever thought, whatever emotion that triggers from that, even if it's so-called in a negative emotion, just observe it and own it. Don't try and beat yourself up for feeling the way that you're feeling or having the thought that you are. It's just part of the human process. And here's the key. The C is for compassion, but it's for self-compassion first and foremost. Again, if we don't recognize the need for compassion within ourselves, then we won't understand that for others. So you're then in that self-compassion, you're placing on the rock the message that you need for whatever's going on for you in that moment. So if I was feeling fearful, I had fearful thoughts at that moment that I'm painting my kindness rock, I might put on the rock, I am brave. And then the K is for kindness. As we all know, there's so much research. You guys probably talk about this a lot, that when we do things for others, it really raises our endorphins and helps us. And then S is where I bring it together. I added the S at the end. And that is because I do believe in service being very important and a major component of what kindness is, because we were all born into this lifetime as individuals, our authentic selves, and each of us as an individual has a gift to bring to this world. And so being in service doesn't have to be some major thing like running a movement or a project, or it's in every moment, being in service, making your day, everybody else's day a little bit better.
When I was listening to you, I just felt when you talked about the O, observe wherever you're at, that observation was without any self-judgment.
Yes.
It was just an observation. It's kind of like, I'm not putting in, no matter what mood I'm in or how I'm feeling and what thoughts are going through my mind, just to observe them without judgment. And I feel like that's so beautiful when we do that.
Exactly. I think, the research is again that we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. I think I'm on the higher range. And 80% of our thoughts are actually negative, which is what research in the mindfulness field is about. And we don't recognize it, right? So we don't recognize when we're beating ourselves up or judging ourselves or making assumptions. And so really this is this creating a kindness rock for somebody else and for yourself is a daily practice. It's mindfulness, it's art therapy, it's taking that time to sit, observe, let it go, give yourself what you need, and go do something nice into the world.
I just love, the words that besides observe, which to me speaks a lot, because a lot of times when we observe, we judge, like you said, 80% of our thoughts tend to be negative. Just the word compassion, kindness, service. And, Cape Cod is such a beautiful part of this country and a beautiful part of this world. It just reminds me, rocks, I always think about a ripple effect, this calm piece of water, basically, right? And you throw one rock, one stone, whatever, and then it continues to expand and expand and expand. The fact that it's expanded to 90 countries, something that started so simple, just you trying to connect with your mom and dad. I lost my mom in my early 20s, so I really resonate with that. And, just like never in a million years would you have thought this was going to grow to be a global event. There's no way. And isn't it though? It speaks to something that unites us all, that we all need to feel connected, right?
Yeah, exactly. And loneliness is epidemic, right? And so some of the ways that we can combat it is through kindness, obviously, but And as I explained earlier, and again, if I had planned to make this movement, or if I had planned to make these kindness walks anything other than originally just to help me, I don't think I could do it. It would be too overwhelming. Like, it would be a huge challenge. And I didn't have it within myself because I was at a really low point in my life. So I did not have that bandwidth for that. But the magic, which I realized after, was that again, that message on the rock hits people and go, oh, I could use this message. That makes me feel better. But then they realize that another human being created it, and there's this connection that's made. So it's not like human connection one to one, but it is like there's a connection with other humans there just by that small act.
And what's interesting about that too is we all need each other. Obviously, you mentioned that earlier. We need that connectedness. There is an epidemic of loneliness, but every time you put one of those rocks together, you said you're writing your feeling down, something that you're experiencing that time. That's what you needed. And in a way, it's catharsis because you're putting that feeling down. Maybe I'm feeling afraid. I'm writing, I'm brave on this rock. And then I'm going to go put this rock out there and think, okay, I'm brave. Now I can put this down and inspire someone else to be brave and carry on. And then the next feeling comes. It's like Elia was saying, it's a ripple effect that those feelings are rippling out, and they'll only continue to grow. Somebody might have picked that rock up on Cape Cod and taken it back to Japan with them, or taken it to Australia or wherever they came from. Somebody vacationing from another country could take it back with them, and they think, okay, I can go do this. And that's probably, I imagine that's how it's grown. People have just picked up the rocks and taken them and seen them and then done something similar wherever they
Yeah,
are.
exactly. And that's the beauty about a rock. Rocks are everywhere. But this is a really good segue too, because every time that I do a podcast or an interview, I do want to highlight also kindness for the earth and our environment. And so, yes, it has grown into this huge movement, and it's lovely, and people can pick up a rock anywhere and they can create it. And as you said, they can take it, around the world when they're traveling. But we do need to ensure that we're kind to the earth. So there's places that we can and cannot leave a kindness rock, and that's in national parks, or at the top of beautiful mountains, or someplace in Greece where it's you need to.
Archaeological sites, yeah, you can't take stuff from, or that's
Yes,
true.
exactly. So we need to be mindful about that. So there's a great resource for that. It's leavenotrace.org, and you can learn all about, how we can, all make a smaller footprint on this planet, and also using eco-friendly paints and products when we're participating. So.
Actually, thanks for adding that. Megan, amazingly, our time is coming to a close. And as always, we ask our guests, are there 3 pearls of wisdom that you want to share with our audience as it relates to the movement, or things that you have come to know in your heart to be true for you and for those others around the world that have benefited from really a very creative and unique spread of kindness? What would those be if you had 1, 2, 3? What would you say?
Well, number one would obviously be kind to yourself. And number two would be kind to others, obviously. And then I guess number three, because I'm using, kind of the acronym for the 5-step process, is you are an individual, an authentic gift for this world. So just go be yourself and go out into the world. And that is the service that you're, adding to this planet right now. So just go be you.
Beautiful.
I'm like, I could ask you so many more questions, but I know our time is up. Have people actually taken pictures of rocks that they have written things on in different languages and send them to you?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I could go on forever. I have some of the most amazing stories from this project in the rocks, and yeah, they're around the world. They send them to me, and especially if someone finds a rock somewhere, they usually send me their story about it. So I have millions of stories.
Oh my
Where do
goodness.
you have, like, where can people find out more about that? Because to me, that's fascinating. I could just, where can they find you and the stories?
Yeah,
How can they
so
connect with you?
the kindnessrocksproject.com. And then on social media, it's at the Kindness Rocks Project. And there's, so many articles and things that are written about the project that you can link to. And also I have a bunch of certified workshop facilitators on there now around the world that are out doing these workshops.
So are all those links on your website, your social media links and things like that? Okay,
Yep, they are.
great. Well, Megan, we can't thank you enough for the time that you've taken to share your beautiful story with us. It's been inspiring and uplifting, and we just want you to know how much we appreciate you being with us today. And we want to take time to thank our audience for taking the time to listen. We appreciate you. Take a few minutes. We invite you, as we do every week, invite you to take just a few minutes about what you've learned today, how it's applicable to you, and what you're going to do about it, how you're going to go forward and pay it forward from what you've learned today. And as we go forward in the next week, as we always do, we invite you to remember that with kindness,
everybody
wins.
All over the world.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Megan. What a pleasure.
Thank you.